Welcome everyone, so happy to have you for our second session of our 2022 Spencer Summer Webinar Series. Today's topic is the changing world of work and what it means for you and your career, presented by some amazing folks with Zurich Insurance. First off, my name is Rachel Lieblein-Drabala. I'm the program manager at the Spencer Educational Foundation. We are a nonprofit organization dedicated to supporting students who wish to pursue careers in the risk management and insurance industry. And we do that through scholarships, through internship grants, and through grants to universities and organizations for experiential learning opportunities for students, as well as risk management and insurance curriculum development and program development at universities. I have a couple of housekeeping notes before we kick off with the main event. The first is that this meeting is being recorded, so if you are not comfortable having your video on, just know that it is being recorded and will be available on the Spencer website after the fact, so you can access any material that you hear here today again, or if you have a friend that wasn't able to join us live but wants to hear, please feel free to direct them to our website to have access to the session there. Again, if you've just joined, please feel free to introduce yourself in the chat. We'd love to get a sense of who's with us today. The third piece I wanted to share is, again, if you are comfortable, we encourage you to turn your video on just to see faces and have a sense of community while we're in this room together for an hour. And last piece is that we will be having a Q&A at the end of the presentation. So if you have questions, please feel free to put them in the chat as we go through. I know sometimes it's hard to hold on to something for the duration of the presentation, so please throw them in there as you think of a question, and I will direct them to our presenters at the end when in our Q&A portion. And with that, it is my pleasure to introduce our presenters today. First, we have Ron Davis, who is, hold on, let me get to our next slide. There we go. Ron Davis is Executive Vice President and Global Head of Customer Management with Zurich Commercial Insurance. Ron has more than 30 years of business experience working with some of the largest multinational companies in the world, and he's held various leadership roles in Europe, Canada, and the United States. Important to note for today's session is that Ron sits on the board of the Spencer Educational Foundation, I believe since 2011. Ron, tell me if I'm corrected. Yep. And was chair of our board in 2016 and in 2017. Ron holds a Bachelor's of Commerce degree from Ottawa's Carleton University, as well as an MBA from Concordia University in Montreal. Next, we have Tracy Lampert, who is Head of Employee Experience and Culture for Zurich North America. In this role, Tracy works with business leaders and employees across the organization to ensure a positive employee experience. She started her career as an underwriter with FM Global and joined Zurich in 1995. Tracy graduated from Northern Illinois University with a bachelor's degree in finance and is a chartered property casualty underwriter. Next, we have Lisa Dukanic, who is Head of Strategy and Business Planning for Zurich Resilient Solutions. Lisa has over 20 years of experience in Zurich risk engineering and operations functions. And in her current role, she works alongside the risk engineering leadership team in developing and driving strategy and helping identify business improvement opportunities. Lisa holds a bachelor's degree in business administration and an MBA from Aurora University. And last but certainly not least, we have Jessica Aguilar, who is Vice President and Head of Talent Acquisition with Zurich North America, where she is responsible for the company's end-to-end recruitment processes and strategy. Prior to joining Zurich, Jessica held similar roles within talent acquisition and has worked with multiple Fortune 100 brands over her career. Jessica holds a bachelor's degree in journalism with concentrations in computer science and fine arts from Indiana University. And with that, it's my pleasure to pass it over to Ron Davis to start off with the presentation today. And thank you so much to our presenters for being here and for all the attendees as well for joining. Ron, I'll pass it to you.
Great, thanks so much, Rachel, and welcome everybody. All of us on the Zurich team, the speakers today, and all of us at Zurich are delighted to have you with us today and to be able to share some thoughts on this exciting subject. Now, first, a little bit of information about Zurich. So Zurich's a leading global multi-line insurance company. We operate in more than 200 countries around the world. We have more than 50,000 employees. So, you know, the employee side of what we're going to talk about today is crucial, because at the end of the day, we're only as good as our employees. So we're only as good as we can deliver the value proposition and engage with our customers, our brokers in a meaningful way. And that's because we have well-trained, hopefully motivated people, just like all of you hopefully are in whatever you're doing and whatever you will be doing. And so Zurich's celebrating its 150th anniversary this year. So we were founded in 1872, so it's a very exciting year for us. We're involved not only on the insurance risk transfer protection side, but also on the prevention side. And we really believe in loss prevention. And when you look at areas of climate change, employee well-being, et cetera, we're very, very involved in these arenas as well. So as Rachel mentioned, I've been on the Spencer board since 2011. Zurich's a big believer in what Spencer is doing, and because we share a common goal and a common mission of making sure that people understand the value that insurance brings to society and the kinds of great careers that young people or any age person can have in our industry. So with regard to the subject today, work sustainability, we know that the work environment is crucial for everybody, whether it's us who have been around for many years in the business or people at the mid-stage of their career or starting their career. The kind of company you're working with, how do they treat you? What kind of benefits are there? What kind of sensitivity is there to what's on the minds of employees? And how do we make sure that we're really well in tune with that and make sure that we put our employees in a position where they can best be focused on delivering the value that we want and executing our mission. But if people are uncomfortable or if they're not clear or if there's various things about how you work or where you work that remain either uncertain or not satisfactory to people, then you're not going to get the best from them. And so we're going to talk today, and my three colleagues who are experts in various areas of work sustainability and talent are going to speak to you about our points of view on some of these subjects, which we think will be important to you. And for those of you that haven't started your careers yet, or are thinking about even changing jobs, this will raise a bunch of different factors you can think about as you think about where you're headed and where you're going, to know what kinds of subjects can you bring up and what can you talk about with your either existing or potential employer. So we see that all work is done through people. You can't get it done. You can come up with the best products, the best capabilities in the world in terms of expertise and tools. But if you can't deliver them well and people don't feel comfortable in what they're doing, they're not going to be able to do it. So we want to nurture growth. We want to deepen our engagement with our existing employees and future employees. And this is all about work sustainability. So that's why we raised the subject, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. So basically, I think that sets the stage. The reason, again, we're so supportive of Spencer is because we think that Spencer's mission is quite distinctive in our business. It's kind of an equal opportunity playing field where all of the players, whether you're an insurer, a broker, a service provider, you have skin in the game, and all of you who are either interns currently or working at different companies can benefit from these kinds of webinars. So thank you, Rachel and Spencer, for putting this on. So I'll pass it back to you, Rachel.
Excellent. Thanks, Ron. All right, so let's get us to our first polling question. I'm going to launch a poll here. There we go. Question is, which of these is most important to you in a new job or current position if employed today? Leave this up for about 30 seconds. All right, 10 more seconds. Fantastic. Okay. Can everyone see the shared results on your screen? Fantastic. So we have job satisfaction at 33%, career progression opportunities, 33%. Excellent. All right. And with that, I am going to pass it over to Tracy.
Thank you, Rachel. And I will say a warm welcome to everyone. Thank you for taking the time today. And I'm really thrilled to join you for this discussion. And this is something that thinking about the changing world of work has been certainly exciting for me to be thinking about in the role that I'm playing. And it's interesting taking a look at the poll results. And what I'm sharing here is a workforce study that was recently done by ADP. And so as we're continuing, I should say, to do some work around what is the new way of working? What is the world of work? We've been looking at external trends, and just the feedback that you all shared on that, on the quick poll is really, it really underscores some of what we're seeing externally. And I'll say for some of our colleagues at Zurich. So you can see here that research shows that employees are looking for a secure job. And when employees are talking about that, they're talking about having the job be on their own terms. So it's not necessarily just about pay, but it's about my well-being. It's about family time, my beliefs, my values. And we know that at Zurich, we have done a number of things around flexibility, and those are really important for employees. Diversity, equity, inclusion. I know no one on that poll, that was an underscore, but I will say absolutely, as we're looking at candidates joining the organization or employees, this is becoming really increasingly important. Job satisfaction, I know that was something that was highlighted as a top area for many of you listening in. Of course, that is something that's really important too. So really the point here is that much of this external research demonstrates that it's not just about the pay, but it is really about making sure that I've got a good work-life balance. You know, a number of employees, and again, the research here shows that almost 3/4 of the employees that were surveyed for the study say that, you know, they want to work for an organization that is fair in terms of pay for gender, that they have diversity, equity, inclusion policies. And that many employees, 7 in 10 in this example, they want to work for a company that has really strong ethics and values, that's something that's really of utmost importance. So Rachel, if you can go to the next page. What I wanted to share with you is just along the lines of flexibility and thinking about, you know, this way of working and making sure that, you know, as an employee, your well-being is cared for, you're supported, etc. We have taken at Zurich a principle-based approach to how we think about our new ways of working, and thought that it would be valuable just to engage with you all today and share with you what that thinking is, because this is perhaps something that as you look at other employers, whether you're employed now or you're looking at a future employment, these are some principles that you can consider. So I will give just a little bit of a backdrop. Zurich has had a flexible way of working since 2016. So we knew from our employees that, you know, they needed some flexibility. It was really important to work-life balance. And we had what we called flex work. And the good news was we had about almost 60% of our employees were working some kind of flexible schedule. Now, I will say that in the rearview mirror, when we talked about that the flexibility, going back to 2016, some of it was working flexibly in the building. And it sounds a little silly, but you know, there was, I would say, a mindset of if you couldn't see them working at their desk, perhaps they weren't working. So there was a lot of a big mindset shift that we really needed to make. You know, it certainly prior to the pandemic evolved to people working, you know, maybe 1 day a week at home, but a bit of it was still feeling like that was special. So, you know, during the pandemic, we absolutely demonstrated as many organizations that we could work flexibly and be very successful, get the business outcomes that we wanted. So as we've gone in and started to take a look of hopefully coming out of the pandemic here soon, we've said, you know, what are the principles that we want to really push for and make sure that we've got more flexibility? So you can see it's always about starting with our customers and results. We want to make sure that we're getting the right outcomes. When we talk about where we work, we've done a lot of work now to say, based on the role, does the location of the work match the nature of the work? And I'll get a little bit more into that. When we talk about how we work, we've been very intentional about how we interact together when we're together or when we're working remotely. And that when we are together, we want to really make sure that we're optimizing the use of the physical space that we have. And then finally, we talk about how we enable and support success. So Safety, health, and well-being are integral to our success. And in terms of our ways of working, that's absolutely been, I'll say, one of the starting points for us to make sure that we have safety and health and well-being at the forefront. And then finally, we have training tools and technology. The technology has been crucial to support our ways of working. So Rachel, if you go to the next page, this really shows a bit more about how these principles come to life in terms of how we use the office. And so there's a quote up here at the top: work is something you do and not somewhere you go. And that sounds kind of cool. It's actually a real mindset shift for people. I think oftentimes, even if you're just conversationally talking about work, people would talk about, well, I'm going to work. And, again, the way that we're working, that has absolutely shifted. One of the things at Zurich that we've been really clear about is, what is the purpose of our office in terms of how we work? And what you see here outlined on the left-hand side is what we call our 5 C's. And we know that there's a real purpose for us to come together. It's super important for our culture. It's important for people to have a sense of belonging and really feel like they're part of the organization. But when we come together in a physical space into our office, we want to make sure that it is there for collaboration, for coaching or learning. We know, especially for new employees, it's really challenging at times to be working remotely. Many of our employees have said, when I come into the office and I'm together with my team, sometimes I can hear people on the phone. I'm able to bump into one another. There's just really much more, a richer opportunity to learn from someone else. Community is another really important part of when we come together physically. We know that there's a sense of community and an opportunity to give back to the community. At Zurich community, our community investment, our ability to make an impact in the communities is super crucial. And so that's something that is important when we come together. And then celebration and camaraderie. And I'll give you an example. I was in the office yesterday, and I was in the office with one of my colleagues that's here, Jessica, which was wonderful because we don't get to see each other in person. We see each other quite a bit on the screen, but we don't get to come together and see one another in person a whole lot. But we were intentional and said, June 22nd, this is our team across our HR team was going to come together, and we planned and we did a town hall meeting. We had a barbecue lunch. And we celebrated 2 colleagues that were retiring. And so it was a very intentional way for people to come together and to work differently. And I will say it's interesting because I was reflecting last night when I came home, and about a month prior, we also had a coming in, a team day, if you will, where we had another celebration and we had a team meeting like that. And I was walking back to my office with a few colleagues, and they said, okay, now back to work. And it really struck me, and I said, well, actually you were working. We all were working. We just happened to be in different meetings, but that's a really important part of the work that we're doing. And it really fostered an interesting conversation. They said, oh yeah, I guess you're right. Because they were thinking they were going to go back to their desk and be heads down. Now, I'll say at Zurich, this is just something that we don't have it all figured out. We're learning. I have absolutely had opportunities where I've come into the office and I'm in meetings all day and I'm on my screen. And so one of the things that we're doing we're really trying to empower for all of our employees, whether you're a manager or an individual contributor, is think about and be intentional about the work that you're doing and where it's best suited. So if you come into the office and either of you got your headphones on or you're just not interacting with people, maybe that wasn't the best use of your day. Maybe you've got to go in and do a bit more planning. So the other thing that I've got outlined here is just, the various ways of how we're working. And again, trying to be very intentional. There's times that we come together in the office, but there's times that are better suited to be hybrid or to have that heads down work. And the location of that work, you can see it, could be at home, could be at a customer office, whatever it might be. I guess the last thing I'll just say here is, again, as you think about different places of employment, hopefully this starts to stimulate some ideas, some questions that maybe you could use as you're talking to potential employers or considering how you want to work, how you can really thrive, what's the best environment. So I'm going to shift gears. If you go to the next page, Rachel, just shift gears. And, that was really about, thinking about flexibility, thinking about hybrid working. But there's a number of other things to contemplate when you're thinking about a great place to work. And this is something that at Zurich, we talk a lot about. Let's grow together. That's our promise to our employees. And we really bring that to life in a multitude of ways. But hopefully this might give you a framework to think about your future great place to work, whether that be Zurich or someplace else. But if you think about your professional future, does it foster opportunities for learning, for belonging, for growth? It could be, that there's some really great opportunities, as an example, for mentoring or to get engaged in an employee resource group. When you think about your professional future, what does the total rewards program look like? Are there well-being programs? The flexibility program that I just went through for Zurich as an example, those are, other things to really think about for you personally. And then for our collective future, what is the organization? Are they an industry leader? Are they, involved in really making some commitments in the community and then to a sustainable future? Is there really an opportunity for you to contribute to some of that bigger picture and really making an impact beyond your individual role? So hopefully those are a few things for you to think about. And it's a very exciting time. I think it's a really interesting time as an employee or a candidate coming into an organization. I think that, as I reflect on my career, just really interesting time to think about, who is the organization that you want to work for? Who, and hopefully this gave you a bit of a structure to think about it. So I'm going to pass it back to Rachel now.
Thank you so much, Tracy. All right, we have a second polling question to keep the wheels turning here. Let me launch that. Question is, what does the acronym DEI stand for as it relates to the presence of differences, promoting justice, impartiality, and fairness, as well as the feeling of being welcomed within an organization? So take a moment to answer this question. About 10 more seconds. All right, I'm going to end the poll and show you the results. Across the board, diversity, equity, and inclusion. With that, I'll pass it over to you, Lisa.
Thank you, Rachel. And so there's so many acronyms nowadays, right? So we just wanted to really make sure that everyone was aligned with the meaning. Obviously, DEI standing for diversity, equity, and inclusion. So again, thank you. I appreciate everyone's time. I just really wanted to spend some time to talk about DEI. It's really not just a priority for firms to consider, but it's also something of importance for all of us, right, as employees. So diversity, equity, and inclusion, it's really become an important driver for success. A lack of DEI is really a growing risk, and it leaves businesses ill-equipped to adapt to the challenges and expectations of an evolving marketplace. So companies really need to prioritize their DEI efforts across their stakeholders and know that doing the right thing for the right reasons, it's ultimately, it will be sustainable for the shareholder value. So as you can probably relate, employees and candidates are looking for transparency around DEI efforts in order to join an organization and remain there, right? So in a time when attracting and retaining talent is more difficult than ever, this does need to be a key priority. And studies have shown that 2/3 of all candidates, they really cite diversity as an important consideration when doing a job search. Another component, as you can see on the screen here, for organizations to consider is as it relates to the potential for lawsuits. So lawsuit recoveries and discrimination cases are skyrocketing. It's amazing. Cases alleging discrimination based on race, sex, disability, and retaliation, they're at all-time highs. And along with, reverse discrimination claims, those are on the rise as well. A third area for organizations to consider is the potential for risk with regulators, right? So regulators are auditing companies on their DEI practices. The regulatory bodies in various states are recognizing that the importance of DEI and auditing companies who do business or have particular licenses is going on regularly. And then customers is another top focus as they're requesting annual DEI surveys from vendors and from suppliers. So they're really looking to work with suppliers who have a strong DEI commitment and are making progress on their goals. And then lastly on this slide here are our shareholders. So shareholders have seen that, the research shows that diverse organizations are more profitable. So they're holding boards accountable for these results, both informally and through shareholder derivative lawsuits. So with that, if you could go to the next slide, Rachel. So now that I've kind of set the stage highlighting the key stakeholders that could be impacted with DEI, let's talk a little bit about how DEI efforts can go wrong. So if companies implement a DEI plan without genuine effort and sincere intentions, it can go sideways. So this slide just shows a few examples of that. In North Carolina, a federal jury awarded former white male executive $10 million in punitive damages for a reverse discrimination claim. And the jury determined that his race and sex were a motivating factor in that employer's decision to terminate him, while they still promoted women and people of color. Another example are claims filed alleging that Jewish health professionals were forced into whiteness accountability affinity groups that included anti-Semitic myths about Jewish power, conspiracy, and control that were offensive. And then in a third example, a class action race discrimination claim was filed that alleges that even though the organization publicly announced that their policy would require diversity in a pool of candidates being interviewed, it was an insincere exercise. So this just really shows the importance of genuine effort. Companies really, need to ensure that they research, plan, and thoroughly review their holistic DEI plan and prioritize celebrating the employee differences. The DEI plan, it just really needs to be clearly communicated with all employees, and it should be evident every level within the organization, including senior management and in every department. And potential candidates, they're going to likely see through, right, the commitment if it's not evident across every level of the organization. So if you could go to the next slide, Rachel. So this, with a focus on environmental, social, and governance, which is also known as ESG, which you might be aware of, another acronym, our customers are tasked with ensuring that they cultivate that diverse and inclusive culture with their employees so that they can thrive. So a diverse workplace, really empowers workers to develop their talent and their skills, which naturally boosts productivity, it boosts happiness, innovation. There's a lot of value and benefits from that. It also improves creativity. It could bring people together from diverse backgrounds and enables a more diverse viewpoint and a series of solutions and approaches to various projects. So it really cultivates new ways of thinking, new perspectives that may be missed without a diverse culture. And then in addition, a culturally diverse company, you're going to earn a greater reputation, right? Elevating their standing and then attracting more employees to work there. So this slide highlights just some of the focus areas and actions that we take at Zurich to help cultivate this environment for our customers. We help our customers focus on retention and turnover, right? By facilitating listening sessions with their employees. DEI also impacts both the physical and psychological safety. And so therefore giving a safe and confidential space for any concern reporting is crucial. So that's a service that we help our customers with. And then companies can also create purpose and meaning with a clear and acted upon DEI strategy throughout all levels within the organization. In addition, as you can see here in the center, compensation, right? Compensation can and should be reviewed through a pay equity process, and DEI can be reviewed with the diversity representation data. And then lastly, a formal review of training and development opportunities for employees is critical in supporting retention, opportunity, and growth. So this slide just kind of shows, we really care about creating that diverse and inclusive culture, and it is ultimately key for the sustainable workforce. So if you could go to the next slide. So now that we spoke a little bit about the importance of creating and embracing that diverse and inclusive culture, let's talk a little bit about what DEI looks like at Zurich North America. DEI, like I said, it's important both internally, externally, and we really take pride in our DEI initiatives. We also help our customers build inclusive organizations that are diverse, resilient, and ready to succeed in that evolving business world. So if you look at this slide in the top left, or the top left for me, I'll just point out a few of these examples, right? So in the Our People quadrant, we have 9 employee resource groups, and I think Tracy touched on that a little bit. And these are really formed to help build an inclusive environment and contribute diverse perspectives on talent and other business needs. So just to name a few, we have ZA, which is the Zurich African Ancestry Alliance. We have Pride Z, advocating for inclusion of the LGBT community. We have Emerging Leaders. So just lots of opportunities for everyone to get involved in. And then in our relationships quadrant, you can see we have our Executive Diversity and Inclusion Council, and that includes representatives from customers, distributors, community, and organizations, as well as our ERGs and ZNA Executive Committee. And it's really focused to provide guidance and accountability in our DIEB efforts. And then in the leaders quadrant, just to point one out there, we analyze, like I said, our compensation data to identify any pay differences for employees in the same or similar roles, and assess whether the differences are for legitimate purposes, right? So is it based on experience, education, training? And if it's not, is it focused on gender, race, or ethnicity? And then in the our communities quadrant, we have the Zurich Apprenticeship Program. And I know that, that's a really important program that we value within Zurich. And it's really an earn while you learn opportunity. So it helps it helps launch insurance careers, and it really provides full-time employment, covering the cost of the associate degree. And we just recently learned that we're doubling down in the size of that in this year and expanding it to 9 locales. So really exciting opportunity that we have. And then lastly, my last point on this slide, it's not on here actually, but I just wanted to talk about some of the awards that we have been named for, right? So Fortune's World's Most Admired Companies, which I think is very impressive, for Forbes Best Employers for Diversity, 100 Best Employers in 2021. So just some really great things that Zurich has been recognized on this front. And then if you go to the next slide. So for my last slide, I just thought it would be good to highlight how DEI is just one part of the social initiative within that broader ESG framework. So at Zurich, we're supporting customers on their ESG journey, whether it's social, environmental, carbon footprint, or economic. So you could see on this slide, this really highlights our overall commitment to sustainability. So for the social component, I've already talked a little bit about the workplace DEI service, but that's intended to help our customers make measurable progress on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And then out of the social, outside of the social component, we have environmental. And we really look at climate change. It's a big focus for us, right? So providing climate change modeling and climate change risk assessments to evaluate exposures and control hazards. And then we have our carbon footprint area where we have some weather advisory services that help our customers. And then within the economic quadrant there, natural hazard exposure assessments that protect property, you know, in terms of flood, wind, earthquake, and fire. So in closing, as you can see, you know, as the world continues to change and adapt with these emerging risks, it really opens up a lot of opportunities, both from a career standpoint for those that are passionate on these topics, as well as benefit our customers and employees. So with that, I will turn it over to Jessica for some career comments.
Thank you, Lisa. I appreciate it. So just kind of bringing us home today, Tracy shared earlier the ADP People at Work survey research. And that really did suggest that there's this emerging sense that a secure job is really one that allows people to earn a living on their own terms and not compromise on things that are seen as essential. So those things could be your health, your well-being, your friend time, your family time, your personal beliefs and values. And I think one of the things as we think about, you know, truly sustainable workplace is really that balance of the planet, people, and profit, because companies are trying to make a profit as well. And really being successful in establishing an environment, one that your employees feel supported, in which they really feel they could reach their full potential. And for each of us, those elements may be different. Something that may be more compelling to me personally may be different for each of you. And not only may it be different, but it may be different at different stages of your career. So I think something that's really incumbent upon each of us, our career is a big investment. So think about a big investment that you might make. You know, maybe you're buying a car or a home or a TV, really can be a huge investment. You know, what do you do? And I think we really have to challenge ourselves to think about that for careers. So one of the things you can do relative to some of these topics is you can go out and you can review a company's website. You can read articles in which the company, maybe even a company spokesperson might be quoted, and really kind of think about, you know, hey, this is an investment in myself. It's also an investment of my time and talents and how I'm going to be giving them to an organization. When you interview, I will tell you, and surely most of you have been through this in some way, shape, or form, interviewers plan questions, and their questions that they ask of you are truly focused on determining your alignment as a candidate to what they most want in a candidate for their opening. So flip the script. Take some time to prepare in that same way and same level for what you value most in your next career opportunity. So maybe some questions I've thrown out here, and I won't drain this, that you could ask. Ask about how a company supported its employees pre-pandemic. And then maybe do a follow-up and ask them how that's changed over the past 2 years. Most companies, the way they've approached this has changed exponentially. That's why when Tracy talked about the new ways of working, they truly are new ways of working. It's a paradigm shift. We're thinking differently about how we approach work, where we work. Some people would even tell you why they're working. That whole question has come up as well. And then I think a question that I've always used that I found to be really effective is, okay, so what brought you to this company? Ask the interviewer that. And then follow up with what's kept you there, and listen to how they answer it. It's not just what they say, it's how they say it. Do they say it with a smile in their voice, with fondness for that experience? I think it's really important to listen to not only what someone says, but how they say it. So here's a few questions that I just thought I'd throw out there as you're thinking about your next steps to kind of grease the skids a bit on things that you might ask, and really intended to get at what you value most, right? Give you the better insights that you can use to form a decision about your future opportunities and the employer who might have that opportunity that you wish to pursue. So we'll go ahead and flip to the last slide here. Before we wrap up today, I did want to also, in the spirit of that, take just a brief opportunity to share a bit about Zurich's early career offerings. The 3 programs that you see on this slide have really been designed to help individuals in reaching their true potential. Some of these roles require a college degree and others help you earn one. So as mentioned by Lisa, we have an apprentice program at Zurich. It was launched in 2016 as the first of its kind to be certified by the United States Department of Labor. This has been an incredibly successful model. It does address workforce sustainability, and it combines 2 days a week of targeted coursework through a community college with 3 days a week of on-the-job training. These apprentices earn a full-time salary and benefits. They don't pay tuition. As mentioned, they're offered across the United States at various locations and various areas of our business. We attract a lot of individuals coming out of high school, transitioning from the military and career changers as well. And we are bringing on over 70 new apprentices this August. So we love this program. We're excited to be growing it. Our internship program looks for rising juniors and seniors, as well as MBA candidates. The objective of the internship program is really to prepare students who are currently enrolled in a degree program for a career in their field of study. I'm thrilled that we have even some individuals on this call today who've been through our Zurich internship program. And it's a formalized and structured program. It encompasses real work assignments, real experience, real interactions with peers, leaders, colleagues, and it's fun. You know, we plan a lot of networking and team building events as well, including a global match event to bring our interns across the globe together and connect them. And then finally, we do also offer several foundational talent training programs. Those are targeted at new grads and early careerists. They are accelerated pace training programs for specific technical roles, things like actuary, claims, finance, risk engineering, and underwriting, and they range from 1 year to 3 years in length. We do some really cool things in there as well. We do a crossover week that is a 1-week experience where everyone comes together. They learn about the program, they learn about our strategy and culture, different business units. It's more a kind of cross-pollination of that talent and interrelationships. And it's a great way to get to know kind of the broader ecosystem of even the industry as well as that within Zurich. So we're really thrilled to have several programs that we do offer, and we've really enjoyed the time we've gotten to spend with each of you today. With that, I think this is the end of our formal sharing. And if I'm correct, I think Rachel's going to open the call for some question and answer.
Thank you, Jess. Yes, indeed. On to the Q&A, and we already have a couple in the chat. So I'm going to ask the first one that's come in, which is from Van. Is it okay to bring up these questions? I'm assuming this is referring to the questions, Jess, that you just shared during a job interview.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Think how many questions you could ask during a job interview. I always tell people if an interviewer isn't giving you time for questions at the end of that interview, or at least, you know, maybe you get kind of down a rabbit hole on something and you run out of time, giving you an opportunity to follow up later with those questions if your time doesn't allow for it. That's a miss, in my opinion. An interview is a two-way street. It's the employer getting to know you and you getting to know the employer. So really both needs should be satisfied by the end of that time together.
I'd just add also to what Jess is saying. I think that it's really important that you want to establish yourself and distinguish yourself if you're in an interview process. And so often interviewers have told me, and I've seen myself sometimes, you go through a process with somebody and you say, do you have any other questions? And the person says no. It's a missed opportunity, really, because you should think about what can you ask to show interest and to show a little bit about the kinds of your comfort level to ask a question. These are all part of your branding and how you come across. So use that opportunity. And I think Jess has highlighted a number of great ideas of what you could say that is perfectly innocent and shows a good engagement.
Thank you. Thanks, Van. The next question that's come in is, I am in discussions with 2 companies to potentially start a full-time position in the fall. One of the companies requires more time in the office than the other, and while I prefer the idea of working remotely, I feel I could be missing out on my skill development by being too isolated. What do you think?
Well, I'd be happy to take that one, or at least start, and I'm sure others have something to add. I think, it's a really good example of then reflecting on what's important to you. How are you going to learn? And this is a great place to ask some of those questions that Jess was talking about too. Learning is really crucial in terms of new ways of working. I know that, the last couple of years, I've absolutely learned some new skills that have been crucial for the work that I'm doing. And I think all of us really, are doing that too. But if you feel like you're going to miss out on skill development and it's because of where you're working, and in this case being remote, I think that's it's a good question to ask the employer and say, how do you envision opportunities to learn, and also reflecting on what is it that you feel like you need. I'll give you an example. I have just recently was talking to someone that's in a new role. It happens to be an underwriting role. They were in another part of the business. They were in a finance role, and they're still relatively early in their career, but they went into underwriting. And during the pandemic, of course, they've been working remotely. And so I think there's been an understanding that compared to others that are, I'll say, newer to underwriting, this person feels like he knows more because he was doing this finance role. But in fact, he's got lots of questions. And so he was saying, I'm chatting people all the time. I would just like to be in the office at the same time as other people because I could actually pick some things up on the phone. I don't feel like I'm bugging people. And, so as I was coaching him, I said, make sure that your manager knows that. Be intentional about when you're going to go in and just make sure that you're clear about what it is that you want to learn. So while this individual, he really values working remotely, he also was recognized that he benefits greatly from these in-person interactions and learning. So, again, I think just taking some time to reflect for yourself about how do you best learn, and then, actually engaging in a conversation with a potential employer about how that's going to work. And if they, part of it could be, well, gee, there's not any formal opportunity to learn, or we haven't really thought about that. That actually tells you a little something too.
Great. Thanks, Tracy. The next question that's come in from Michael is, oh, sorry, did I interrupt somebody who was starting to talk? No? Misheard. All right. Next question coming in from Michael is, what part of Zurich's early career programs do the participants value the most? Is there anything unexpected?
Wow, that's a great question, Michael. So I would say it sometimes differs by the person, truly, right? So I believe some of the consistent themes that I've heard more broadly from our trainees tend to revolve just around the ability to learn more broadly, where they might want to, in some cases, have an interest in specializing. They're getting exposure to different areas of our organization. They're really kind of understanding how all of the pieces come together. Versus just getting really narrowly focused on one area. And I think that exposure both to the business as well as to various colleagues, and I'll say colleagues because it's not just leaders, it's other colleagues that they would be working alongside and that they're getting to know, and they're tapping into the knowledge base that those individuals have and learning just from interactions is something that I've heard a lot about. I also think there's a collegial aspect to being part of the training programs that has been expressed. And that's, having others that are going through what you're going through at the same time and learning together, and also being able to kind of play off of that. A lot of times I hear from our trainees that, they keep in touch with other trainees that went through the program at the same time as them. Those are career-long relationships that they're establishing. And so I think there's something very unique about that. That's very sticky and very compelling to people to have that shared experience.
Thanks, Jess. The next question that's come in is on diversity, equity, and inclusion. The question is, how can I tell if a company really believes and is acting on DE&I versus those that say they do but aren't really necessarily doing anything? You mentioned questions I could ask them, but could I be also seen as a problem employee by raising those questions?
Yeah, so I mean, I could start, and then I don't know if Jess or Tracy, you want to take it from an HR perspective, but I think just, seeing what the organization is doing, they're walking the walk and talking the talk. Like I showed a lot of the things that we have going on in our organization. So we offer this service to our customers to identify, where they're at from a maturity standpoint, from a D&I perspective, and then offer opportunities to improve. We're doing that at Zurich as well, right? So we're looking at where we have opportunities, and we're continue to focus on that. So I think if you see those things being done within an organization and you feel it and you feel the culture, then you'll know that it's not just speaking about it, right? It's actually taking action.
And Lisa, one of the things you mentioned, you gave the overview of our employee resource groups, of which we have 9 at Zurich. And these are really important opportunities for people to get engaged and to have a voice. And so I think, in terms of there being a proof point, I mean, it's a good way to ask and say, what are the opportunities to get involved in resource groups? Are people encouraged to actually get involved? And then, is there, do you have an opportunity, again, going back to some of the learning, to learn about other groups? And I'll say sometimes it's a bit of a softer way, but you can really get a sense as to whether or not an organization is committed to some of the DEI, because this is a place where you feel like you have a sense of belonging. It really fosters inclusion. So those are really, really wonderful opportunities. But if an organization has some resource groups and they're really not thriving, I'll say, and if there's not leadership support for them, that it actually could, be a bit of a something for you to think about. But I would encourage, I think, most organizations, this goes back to what are employees looking for? Employees have an important voice in terms of what they need from the organization. But, if something doesn't feel right, it's important for people to raise their voice and not feel like, oh gosh, I'm going to be a problem if I raise my voice. But, I would say, do it in a constructive way and a positive way. But, I would encourage people to use their voice. I will say that's absolutely crucial, again, for Zurich right now. We do a lot of listening to employees and really trying to make sure that we're creating an environment that people feel like they can thrive. And if they're not, then, we want to understand that and make it better.
Thank you both. Great. The next question's coming in from Petros. How does one apply for Zurich's internships and training programs? And if you're interested, should you go about using Zurich's official website to do that?
Great question, Petros. Yes, so we typically begin posting our internship and training program opportunities in mid to late August. You'll start seeing them start showing up on our career site, which is at zurichna.com/careers. You can go on there and look, or you can actually go on and create a profile and ask to receive email notifications so that they just land in your inbox when they start going live. So yeah, we'll be out on campus this fall. Hopefully get to even meet some of you who are on the line today.
And I'd also add, Jess, I mean, we do similar things, whether it's in the US or in Canada. So wherever somebody may be, from a North America viewpoint, there's opportunities because our Canadian office is growing dramatically. Our US office continues to grow. So we're well represented, and we know that Spencer and Spencer Scholars and young people everywhere are looking to further their careers, and we're certainly a good option.
All right, we have time for 1 or 2 more questions. The next one coming in is from Kira Villa. What are some ways to leverage the hybrid work environment, especially if you are early in your career and learning new things about your role and day-to-day, as well as meeting new people?
So I would just say, I guess, leveraging the hybrid work environment, to make sure I'll just say, technology is crucial to make sure that if you've got somebody that's working in the office and somebody that's working on the at home, and technology is really, really important. To be really candid, it's something that we're still working through, because when you're all on the screen and you're all working from home, as an example, it seems to be working a whole lot better. I'm not sure if that was really the essence of the question, but I do think that going back to those 5 C's that I mentioned about the collaboration and community and coaching and learning and camaraderie, it's in celebration, it's important to be intentional. So if you're going to come together, just think about, if we're going to meet in the office, let's make the most of our time. You don't want to come into the office, as an example, and put your headphones on and then you're on a bunch of calls. You could do that at home. So that's something that I'll say at Zurich, we're really trying to empower our employees to say, gee, if I'm coming in for a reason, and it's going to actually make my workday much more productive. So that's what I would really encourage you to do.
If I could add, Carvel, one of the other things I think is really helpful, because to Tracy's point, this is an evolving environment within many organizations, is again, asking questions. You're looking to meet new people, ask your manager or others you're working with, is there a day that you see more people in the office than others, right? Because different teams have different schedules a lot of times at different companies for when they'll be in and out. And then to Tracy's point, be intentional about positioning yourself to be there, just so that you can have those casual office conversations. You get to meet some new people, maybe see someone in the cafeteria or at the water cooler that, you wouldn't have if you hadn't made plans to be there. I think it's like anything else, even before we were in such a heavy hybrid work environment, is that you really have to kind of own your approach. And if that's something that's really important to you, then ask some questions and take those extra steps to make sure that you are getting those opportunities to interact, even reaching out to people you might have an interest in getting to know better and saying, hey, if you're planning to be in the office, let me know. I'd love to be there. Maybe we can grab lunch or grab a few minutes. I'd like to get to know you better. I think that's always acceptable. And I think it's often very appreciated by others to have that kind of outreach. So there's another thought.
That's great. Thank you both so much. I want to respect that we've hit the hour mark, and I know folks likely have busy days continuing on ahead, but Jess, that was a great transition. All the presenters, as you can see, have provided their email addresses here. So if you want to take a quick photo, or I'm also happy to share that with you, you all have my email after the fact to continue building those connections that Jess was just talking about. So I certainly encourage you to do that. I want to take a moment to very much thank all 4 of the presenters today. This was a really robust, wonderful conversation, and I'm grateful for your time and for coming on and sharing all of this fantastic information with our audience. To our audience, thank you for being here, for taking an hour out of your day to join us to hopefully learn something new. I hope to continue seeing you throughout the summer. We have a number of other educational sessions that we're offering weekly. We're taking a break next week for July 4th, but we'll be back on Thursday, July 7th with a webinar titled Real Estate and Hospitality, a Risky Business, which will be with Tim Bunt, who is Real Estate and Hospitality Practice Leader with Everest Insurance. So we'll be talking about insuring and managing risk for the real estate and hospitality industry. So if that's something you're interested in, I encourage you to join us. And with that, just a huge thank you again, Jess, Lisa, Ron, Tracy, thank you for joining, and thank you everyone for being here.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Rachel.
Thanks. Take care.
Have a great rest of your day, everyone. Bye.